Are you ready for 2025? I realize I've already been dating things 2025, 2025. I'm probably gonna like the first check that I write. Yes, I still write checks occasionally. It's going to be for 2023 or something. What happened to 2024? I confess, I'm feeling a bit grouchy here on New Year's Eve, which is probably, the sort of natural state of the end of the year and feeling saturnine. No, I mean, I'm not feeling sanguine. I'm feeling saturnine about the last year. And I suspect that's just, some sort of immediate local problems, like I got bit, right? I've got like this ow, right? Ow, ooh, yeah, ow, ow. So if I'm grouchy, I'm going out from 2024 on grumbly. We're so thankful you guys are here to talk us through what did we just live through. Welcome to the Mosaic Ark. So do you think I'm gonna die? Right? I mean, it's like look at this. Look at this. I want my spider bite stream, right? You guys have to hang out with me and Casey for hours now, trying to figure out, well, it's Casey's fault. When we were warming up, she was telling me about some guy who almost but nearly didn't die of a snake bite. I want my spider bite, which is multiple and itchy, and it was worse yesterday, right? So maybe I'm not dying. I don't know, but I had this spider got me on Christmas Day. I had it all across my face, and I was itching, and
I don't know what to say to that. All I was going to say is I felt fat and have to stop eating chocolate.
What?
All I was going to say is I felt really fat and I need to stop eating chocolate. I'm actually looking forward to a diet at this point.
Oh, for your new so we have New Year's resolutions, right? Yeah. So I did actually managed under extraordinary circumstances, meaning my mother's house, to carry on with my new exercise program over the break. So that's hopeful. That's hopeful. But then I got these bites and a headache, and
You have superpowers, though. Hey, look on the bright side.
How so? That I made it home with the spider bite.
No, you could be the new Madam Web.
I'm driving. This is all the web, right? My husband and I are driving back, and I'm spending most of the 2 days in the car trying not to scratch my face.
Oh, that's a rough one.
So itchy. Yeah. It was so itchy. Now it's just transferred to my arm, right? The
prednisone. It's your friend. Get some.
I don't even know what that is. Is that topical, or is that did you take?
No, it's oral. Oral steroids. Prednisone. It'll take that swelling right down. I found out I was allergic to mosquito bites this summer, which is funny considering where I live, but they really work.
I don't believe in medicine. I'm the child of doctors. I think medicine.
It works.
No, everything is itching now. I was like, I've got phantom itches on all my limbs in exactly the same spot, right? It's like it's like I'm clearly not bit here, but that itches now too.
I think this needs to turn into, and now I have superpowers of the spider in order
I
going
would.
into the new year.
How would I? Yes. How do we navigate the web? Well, I'm a spider. Clearly, I sit here.
There you
I sit
go.
here bit by whatever Texan spider got me twice. I mean,
Yeah.
both of my face. So I will have. Oh, actually, this is good. It got me on my face, so that'll give me powers of spider speech, and it got me on my arm. Which means I'll have strength. This
Web
is
slinger.
my writing hand, right? So maybe I'll be able to write the web. Okay, that
You'll be able to weave.
they will be
Be able to
weave stories. Okay, this has possibilities. I want to see manifestations of this superpower coming on, right? Because otherwise it's just I'm gonna die and we have to sit here in this not hangout, but whatever we are, live streaming thingy, pretending not to be Milo in his time when he had the spider bite. Does anybody watching remember that? How old are we now on the internet? Does the internet
don't
have
remember
age?
that. I don't remember that. I just had spider bites, so as soon as you showed it to me, I'm like, ooh, spider bite.
Well, so for those of you who are aware, Milo, who does not have a podcast, he's happy. He's talking about it on the X about how happy he is. He has no podcast. I guess that's a good thing. There was the spider bite episode. He was still in England and he was sitting there in the middle of the night and opened up a hangout, a Google Hangout for his guy friends to sit around deciding whether or not he was going to die. And he'd drawn like he drew a ring around it so you could watch the spread of the swelling and stuff like
Oh,
that.
good grief. It was a Deadpool. Yeah.
And how so?
Well, they were trying to decide whether they were taking bets to see if he would die. A Deadpool.
Is that what a
Right? That's where the
Deadpool
word comes
is?
from.
Is that what it is?
That's where the Deadpool came from. Yeah, it was the Deadpool in Deadpool. That's so.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought Deadpool. No, I thought Deadpool was one of the like characters.
Oh, he is a character, but that's what he was named after.
Okay, so a Deadpool is when it's a. Are you guys doing
Who dies tonight? Yeah.
Who dies tonight? Oh,
Yeah.
so
Right. Who dies tonight? Because it was a hangout. It was a hangout of assassins. So some of whom didn't make it past the night. So
I didn't
who
know
do you
that.
have in the Deadpool? Yeah.
Okay,
So we
so
had his own Deadpool going.
I think I've already spoiled it since I said this was worse yesterday. So unless it gets really bad as we're talking, I guess I'm not gonna die tonight. I wasn't sure with the migraine and the one on my face and stuff on Christmas Day. That was a hard day. It was a hard day.
That's rough.
Especially since I have, my family are, nothing but doctors. And so it's like, are you going to give me some advice that'll kill me or make me feel better?
Or just make you think you are going to die.
Oh, well, I mean, if you grow up with doctors,
everything that could go wrong.
either you never have anything serious enough for anybody to be, it's like if you're not in the emergency room bleeding, who cares? Because
Yeah,
there's
it's a
always
beast and
somebody
get over it.
else who has something worse that you couldn't possibly be worthy enough to be dying of.
You're really painting a picture. That's funny. Sorry.
It's just
I don't need to laugh at your
I am not exaggerating. I am telling you the utter and complete truth. And indeed, if you're not
I believe you.
growing up with a father who is a trauma surgeon, if you're not dying or bleeding, nobody cares.
Oh, no sympathy, huh?
Well, I mean, actually, my dad was very good when I did slice my finger up, and I still have the scar. I treasure it. I was cooking dinner for him and to introduce him to a mathematician because my dad wanted to talk to a mathematician, and so I found him a mathematician who's in our actually both our mathematics and our computer science department here. And I got my dad come up and I sliced my finger open before my colleague showed up for the dinner.
Oh.
And the best thing about it was my dad taking care of my wound.
Aw,
Because he looked
that's
at it and said,
sweet.
"You're not dying."
Yeah, you'll live.
Basically.
Which is what every dad says, right? Doctor or no.
I so miss my dad, right? It's like you want to be able to slice your finger
Aw.
open and have your dad, reassure you don't need stitches, you're not dying. And yeah, that was 2024. No, that was actually 2004. My dad died in 2005, right? So 20 years
Yeah.
ago.
a long time. It doesn't seem like it, isn't it?
Well, this is I get see this is what's funny about I feel like we've talked about this already, the sort of present, right? The problem of the present and the internet, but I'm having a really hard time right now because I just wanted to spend my entire time on X mainly saying I told you so. It's like, what happened to the last 20 years? It feels like everything I've been trying to say for 20 years, people are finally getting, maybe. Right. It's like if only they'd catch up. I'm sick of having to explain the same thing over and over. And I it's like on my X, most of the posts I make, I'm like, I really, it's like, I told you so, here's the blog post. I did tell you so.
Yeah, you did. Yes, you guessed it. So your Madam Web career began way before the spider bite.
Even Milo's spider bite, right? Even I've been having to smack Milo a lot today because he missed out. He's completely missed our pirate theme.
I can't believe he fell for that. If you're working for his Majesty, then you're not a pirate. What?
We should explain, right?
It's okay. It's okay if we do it. We're monarchy. That makes it moral and good.
No. Okay, now my face is itching again. So he was. Okay, so we are here. It was a good thing that the debate erupted on Twitter on Christmas Day, which I did not find out about because I was not, in fact, paying attention on Christmas Day to.
Good for you.
Well, maybe I was somewhat on social media because you can't not look at Telegram, right? The world is on, it's all of the edge on. But apparently there's this thing that started on X on Christmas Day. And by the time I looked back, I was like, did you see what, erupted on Christmas Day? The great H1.
Okay, now I don't remember what did, because I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it.
It was the H1B debate with.
Oh, that one. Okay,
yeah,
I did.
With
okay,
Elon. See, you did, which
I did. I don't know. It might have been Christmas Eve.
No, it actually started on Christmas Day. Isn't that funny? Yes, I think so. I'm pretty sure.
Of all the things to start on Christmas Day.
It started on Christmas Day. So we thought we're going to get to the end of 2004. We're just kind of writing it out, right? We're all waiting for the inauguration. We have to get past January 6th again, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. The mayor of Washington, D.C. has been acting a bit, I don't want to say obsequious, but she's been very accommodating towards Trump. It was just something she said, and I just caught this just before we started here tonight. And all right, she said she was feeling very optimistic when speaking to Trump. But I'm like, oh, optimistic about what?
Like
whatever.
Everything will go as normal.
For?
I mean, what?
I'm not going to get investigated or prosecuted for my part in January 6th, perhaps.
Oh, well, I mean, so everything depends. I mean, the validation of the electors is still January 6th, right? Is it always January 6th or
yes.
Okay. So
that's set in I think that's set in law.
Okay, so it's going to be January 6th again. So we'll have another epiphany, right? Really, the ways in which these modern events are taking over our liturgical calendar is really, really.
Yeah, that's not an accident. They did that on purpose.
Yeah.
I don't understand why.
Oh, well, because they want to wipe out Christmas. Obviously. I mean, look, Elon starts the H1B debate on his platform on Christmas Day. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically become Potter, him and Ramaswamy, they've become Potter. It's like, work harder. Americans are lazy. Your culture needs to change. I'm like, I'm sorry, you were born here, so you're like a technical paper American, and your parents, I don't even think they're citizens, but you're going to tell me my culture is wrong and crack the whip and tell me to work harder? What?
You mean that was what so Mr. Bad. Ramaswamy said? Yes.
That was what Ramaswamy said. I can't repeat what Musk said, but I think I sent you a meme right before we started this that perfectly captures what I'm thinking right now. And I think what everybody's thinking right now. I don't think they expected that kind of severe and quick backlash that they got.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. We morphed into Scrooge today.
Well, I mean,
so it's kind of Christmas themed.
I realize I have not dug back into the archive on Christmas Day sufficient. I've been reading. John Carter did a nice breakdown of it, and some of the other Substack guys that I've been reading have been talking about it. But I'm not even quite clear how it started. Right, that there was and why they were talking. What were they doing on Christmas Day, talking about our employment policies for immigrants, for foreign visa holders? What?
Quite the present, wasn't it?
Well, indeed,
quite the Christmas present.
Indeed, and by the time everybody was aware of it, it was suddenly this complete blow up over how, in order for our tech to grow, we needed to bring in people who are not even as well qualified as the people. No, wait, that's my version of it. In order for the tech world to flourish, we needed to bring in people from outside our training system. No, that wasn't what they said either. I mean, it's like, but it was one of those.
We need to bring in the best and brightest.
Oh, right, that was the idea. We'll bring in the best and brightest, because the best and brightest,
from Britain.
Oh yeah, none of the best and brightest are apparently found in the United States anymore, because we're all lazy and jocks.
They're not found in Britain and Ireland either. And I gotta say, my husband came here on an H-1B visa. It was for a very specific time. He went to a British university in Britain, one of the best in the world, and he worked for a contracting company. And we got married eventually, and he became a citizen eventually. That's neither here nor there. The H-1B visa was for a very specific project in aerospace. And when it was done, he actually went to another country to work on another contract somewhere else.
Right.
So what they're proposing now is we can't build these companies without bringing in tens of thousands of Indians to come here to work. And as Ramaswamy said, it's because they'll work 80 hours a week. They're basically slaves.
Oh, indentured servants, please.
He didn't say either. He just said they're hard workers and their culture is better because of it. So basically, he morphed into a combination of Scrooge and Potter here. And
well, no, I mean it was worse for Ramaswamy. It was worse because he grew up as a geeky nerdy kid and was acculturated by the United States. Which also values other activities like leadership and beauty. And
yeah, somebody dug around. It might have been you, in fact, or found people digging around the H-1Bs and found out it's actually Indian-owned tech companies in the United States using the H-1B visa to bring in and hire only Indians.
I'm third hand on all of this stuff, but yes, that is in fact. I mean, the problem is that the companies are recruiting portals for for a single country.
So 30 years ago, Boeing wants to build a brand new, complete from the ground up design airplane. It was the 777, which is now being replaced because it's been over 25 years since it's been designed. Right. When they did this, they needed a crap load of engineers very quickly. And so they used contracting companies that brought them in. And there was a whole lot of British people that came over, and there were a lot of Russians that came over. And there were, some Germans and people from other companies. Predominantly, it was British, but it was for a short contract. And these people weren't treated well. As soon as the contract is over, get out.
Right. No, right? It is actually just an employment visa.
Yeah. Yeah. They had to pay into unemployment, even though they were here on a contract, only on an H-1B visa. And when they lost their jobs, they couldn't collect any of it. They just had to get out, right? So this is a way for the government to make money. And I think they got paid pretty well. They got paid through because their overhead was lower because the company didn't hire them directly. And ideally, that was in the early 90s and mid 90s. That was the way it was supposed to work. And now it's just a backdoor to citizenship. But they'll hold these people on these H-1B visas because they'll have to work 80 hours a week. Because if they don't, they're out the door and they're out the country the next week. They're supposed to be. Right. That's what it says. And they hold it over these people's heads. So Ramaswamy is wrong on so many levels, besides just being a flagrant racist. It sounded like it. Yeah, because Americans are just lazy and undereducated, and their culture is awful, and their culture is lazy. This is how he came across.
Yeah,
Right?
so I haven't double checked on this,
time,
but the rumor is that tweet doesn't exist anymore, but it's out there in every
it better
screenshot.
not. It doesn't
No,
matter.
he said
the
it.
internet is forever.
He said
You
it,
should know that.
and he shouldn't have
does.
said that. And
But say that about American culture is defective and needs to be fixed by all these hardworking Indians that come over here. These Indians are basically being trafficked this way. I mean, they're coming over here willingly, but the thing is, they have to work 80 hours. They have to work for peanuts, or they don't get over here.
Right.
Period.
Right.
That's it. So it's almost like extortion. We're going to extort this work out of you, or or you're out of here. And I don't care if you own a house. I don't care if you have cars. Get out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the threat. That's the constant threat that these people live under. So he's bad mouthing and badly abusing Americans, but the Indians being brought over here are going to be abused too.
Well, that's when I started weighing in on it, that my take was like in free trade slavery now, right? Because
that was right on. Yeah.
It's a form. I mean, all of this is a form of exploitation and slavery, and they're obviously being brought in because they can undercut the salaries that Americans who actually live here have grown to expect to be able to command for skilled work. Right? And that was, and then when I started weighing in on it further, when I was in the car trying not to scratch my face, really, it's like, if you want to know why my tweets were quite so spiky the last few days, well, it's like I gotta do something with my hands when I'm not driving.
I can't scratch.
I can't scratch. I got a tweet. That Ramaswamy was indicting our culture generally, but he was also indicting our educational system, and at some point I started to see, unfortunately, you see pieces of all of these conversations, right? It's like you see one tweet here, one tweet there. And one of the ones I saw copied out there was, at some point, Musk had been saying, if you need a school, you've already lost, which I then finally found out.
I remember that.
Talking about, engineers just, are out there. And someone said to him, well, why don't you train more in the United States? And he said, if you need a school, you've already lost. Okay, so basically what our education system is pointless, and which you engaged on this a bit too, that means then that all of that debt that we've gotten our students to go into is a fraud. It's like, and I'm I in the hotel on the way back, which means I got to watch television. My Cousin Vinny is one of the funniest movies ever. If you haven't ever,
it's a good one.
Grits,
yeah.
There were a lot of ads, right? Because it was actually regular television, which, oh my gosh, talk about where are we in the world now? I can tell you because I saw the ads over and over and over again. Maybe we go there in a minute, but a lot of the ads were for, get your degree here, right? There were either online degrees or, local technical colleges and stuff like that. And they're saying, the promise, and it's all because they're still recruiting out of the not white men pool. So it's all, black men and women of all colors, and mostly black women and occasional Latino women. Right. Right.
I might be a token white woman in there
sometimes, but they're lying to them, right? So they're lying on all levels, right? It's like, we have no intention of hiring you to these high level jobs because basically we're going to import people, on the cheap. So the scam works on all. I was getting so mad, right? It's like you're realizing the scam, the guaranteed student loans, the scam of go to our educational system is apparently the best in the world, which is why we can bring all these foreign students, because we recruit them and tell them that it's worth coming here. And then guess what? According to Elon, if you need a school, you've already lost it. And you're just like, did anybody hear themselves in this debate?
No, they don't hear themselves. They mask off time, or do they just not think before they speak? I don't believe Ramaswamy thinks before he speaks. I think he speaks too much and too fast. And he thinks people aren't paying attention, but they are. And I'm really angry at him. Really angry. We have a Labor Day in this country. Why? It's because our working class was treated horribly, and they were trying to trying to treat them better.
Yeah.
They got a little bit of political clout through their unions. Now, I've always hated unions because they're kind of brutal towards people who don't pay them money, and that just sounds like a loan shark to me. The idea behind them, though, is not a bad one. To be able to, as labor, to be able to organize and negotiate for contracts. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
We have this because they're treated bad. So why don't we just get rid of Labor Day now? Because we're all lazy anyway. Right?
The layer you were talking about Pottersville. Maybe explain to the people what that is and why we might be thinking about that right now.
Well, I think of Evita Campos Duffy.
Campos Duffy is her mom. Rachel Campos Duffy is her mom. Evita is Duffy Alfonso.
Duffy Alfonso, right. Okay, so Evita Duffy Alfonso was talking about Pottersville with her mom, Rachel Campos Duffy.
They looked like, hi guy, they looked so beautiful. They do look alike, so but it was a very nice little segment on Fox.
It was. Yeah. And they were talking about the fact that, I think, was it Amazon Prime that did this?
I think so.
That deleted the Pottersville section of It's a Wonderful Life, where a George Bailey, who is seeing the world as if he weren't there, discovers that where there was, I think they called it Baileyville or something like that, or some Baileytown. He had loaned through the building and loan. He had loaned people money to build houses,
right? And
so this was a whole field of houses where, lower middle class, working middle class people could raise their families, and he and his dad's business had helped out. But when he's not there, Potter had bought the whole place, and it was now a graveyard. So it was a great metaphor for towns die when people don't put investment into the people of their towns. The towns die, and it's a graveyard, right? So Amazon Prime deleted that scene. It's a very important scene. Now, interestingly enough, and I don't remember if she covered this. When the movie came out, it got investigated by the FBI. I think it was the FBI or some government organization, maybe the FBI, because they thought it was anti-capitalist.
Right. So this is, the kind of like, on the one hand, the point about it is that, when Potter takes over the town with his bank and his control of everybody's properties and the porn and the gambling and everything, it's a disaster, which is prophetic to looking at many of our, you all who are with us on the Mosaic Ark know I regularly do this drive through Middle America, Route 66, and it's telling, right? It's like you cannot not notice what's happened to the middle of our country over the last 7 years.
What happened during COVID, right? Churches, you're not essential.
Yeah.
The small diner where everybody meets, you're not essential.
Right.
You're shut down. The small hardware store, shut down. What's open? Marijuana shops are open.
Oh, there's so many more. There's so many more marijuana shops
are open.
What I have noticed too,
gambling parlors open.
Oh yeah, and the casinos.
Everything.
We drive through.
It turned into Pottersville.
All of it, the middle of the country.
The country turned into Pottersville. So Amazon comes along and deletes the Pottersville scene because they don't want you to see this very strong metaphor of what happens when you don't invest in people, when you treat people like a disease that has to be locked away and out.
Well, the funny thing about one of the articles I saw on the Pottersville excerpt, it's like, because they were in a copyright dispute, because there was this short story. It was like, what? Are you kidding me? Because apparently they were also streaming. You could get the unabridged version if you paid attention. I think if you want, So we're just going to bridge it out and therefore make the story make no sense whatsoever, because how will he? It's the end of A Christmas Carol, right? When he finds out what happens if I don't do such and such. Well, here, this is without your intervention, all of these things fall apart for people, and therefore saying yes, we do have responsibilities to our communities, and we do need to live well in our towns, and so the refrain of what were they thinking?
I know what they were thinking. They were thinking it's anti-capitalist.
But how is okay? So this is the problem of. How is it anti-capitalist to say it's evil to promote businesses that encourage vice? right? How do we get to that? Oh, well, it's anti-capitalist to say pornography and gambling and
Because
drug
people
use
were
are damaging to people's souls.
well, it was damaging to the city itself. The city was dying, right? That's the whole graveyard scene, right?
Right.
You don't have a city, you have a giant casino, and that's what it turned into.
Right.
You know,
Well, and this fits. So we didn't know what our topic was going to be tonight. We were just going to review the new year, and it's like, oh, we're reviewing the last week, but maybe it is the whole year. That what
it's the whole last 4
Musk
years,
and Ramaswamy
like.
turned our country into by their H-1B argument is, in fact, the only thing that makes you valuable is the degree to which you can work 80 hours a week.
It sickens me. It angers me.
There's no point in
really
having an actual community, having an actual family, they're doing this on Christmas Day, having an actual sacred feast.
Yeah. How dare you?
Yeah.
Get up, lazy Americans. Oh, that's right. We're not hiring you anyway. Just kidding.
Well, in that sense, they're good. They're good Puritans. Since the Puritans didn't like having Christmas, they said it should be regular market day. Guess what? We got it. I've done, and I have told you so on that. There's on the blog, on Fencing Bear blog, there's a number of posts because for several years I kept doing the where's Christmas problem, and of course one of the problems for the United States is it was founded by people who weren't celebrating Christmas because they felt it was either. I mean, what's curious. If Christmas has been completely commercialized, we got exactly what the Puritan founders wanted, which was that December 25th would be just any other day, right? Because they thought it was, I don't even know, it's the usual argument is they thought it was pagan because guess what? Everybody playing at how Christmas is actually Saturnalia, you're late. You're a Puritan. And
here's your black cat.
The best example of that in literature is in Robinson Crusoe when he's in his not yet converted phase. He's keeping a calendar of what it's like for him living on the island, and you got December 24th, it rains. December 26th, built some more, something like that. He's keeping this diary, and Defoe very purposely leaves the date out, right? No December 25th at all, right? It's not only a meaningless day, it's a nothing day. It isn't even there in the calendar. So
conspicuous by its absence.
Massively so. So we have we are going to get back around to Milo at some point, you realize in this week. I've got my spider bite to remind me that
spider biter is an incredibly bad take on pirates.
That one, the bad take on pirates, because we're talking about this. It's like, what have we? So here I'm going to start the images now because they're just going to play, right? It's like in the background of what we talked about. We started this, our January 33rd live stream last year was, you remember your meme dealer, and they kept you through this difficult year. That if we think back over all of the stuff that has happened in this year, and I know I've kind of glanced at the picture, so there I know what's coming. Putin in the interview with Tucker. Talking with Davidson about pagan America, talking with Evita about Gen Z. The Paris Olympics, anybody remember that from this summer? Before or after the shooting? Was the Olympics before or after the shooting?
Before.
Yeah.
I think it was before.
No,
that shooting is why I did not finish the Dante's trilogy.
Because
I got so distracted
by the Trump shooting.
I got so distracted. Anyway, my excuse.
I expected. It's like a week ago. I was expecting to feel more elevated by now, right?
I think it's just there's just, like I said, I don't think this doesn't feel like the end of a year. This feels like the end of 4 years. It just like everything came to a head, right? In this last year, and including in these last week.
In this last week,
with this fight over, okay, what does it mean to be an American
again?
Again, yeah. It doesn't mean I'm born here, therefore I get to tell you to change your culture and work harder and crack the whip.
Okay, but we could,
Okay,
I mean,
I'm biting my tongue.
no, the thing is, play devil's advocate for a moment, right? Maybe it does. I mean, maybe that's what we were founded by. We were founded by the tech bros of the Enlightenment, which was one of my tweets earlier today. You can find the notes for this episode and all my tweets, right? That the tech, we've been tech broed since our founding. Because now we call them tech bros, but in the 18th century they called them philosophes, or they called themselves philosophes, right? And they, as the philosophers, were going to, redesign all human institutions and life and stuff by what?
I can believe that of Musk. He talks like and thinks like a philosopher.
Yes.
Ramaswamy thinks like a robber baron, and it's real obvious.
Okay, well, but I mean, the thing is, the idea of the philosophers is that they would rule through reason, right? And so we have either, and this is, I don't even know what I am anymore. I know I'm American, right? That's the one thing I do. I'm Christian. Okay, Christian and American, and the American, we've investigated that a lot over the years of, well, what does it mean to be an American? Is it that you came over on the Mayflower? Is it that you came over before the Revolution? You have ancestors therefore who were involved in the writing of the Constitution. So there's the posterity there. Is it, in fact, Americans are the ones who were the natives, and it's indeed only us Scots-Irish who intermarried with the natives that count as actual true Americans, right? The problem of our being a notional country is we are kind of.
Well, what country isn't at its founding?
Okay,
and
and
Rome comes to mind, and it absolutely imported everything from Greece because it admired it, and it was building from several different. Consciously building from several different cultures.
Yeah, I mean, and this being persistently the problem, right? Is that Rome? Well, so Rome defined itself. It creates a new myth for itself because Virgil writes the Aeneid, and the Aeneid, makes the argument that I think Contemplations on the Tree of Woe was imagining the Aeneid recently, saying, are the Trojans just going to let themselves be, overwhelmed and die, or is Aeneas going to run off with his father on his back, carrying, piously carrying his father Anchises on his back, and go found a new country after seducing Dido and then leaving her in Carthage so that she kills herself, and then he shows up in Latium, fights the locals, they steal some women, and he kills Okay, Rome's founding is like, even in Virgil's story, it has a lot of things to wish for. We should go back to America because that's at least simpler, maybe.
Is it?
Well, no, and that's the thing, and
they were doing this. They were doing the same thing. They were taking Enlightenment philosophy and starting a government with it. Did everybody who signed the Constitution think that? Probably not. They probably just had enough in common where that they thought we can do this ourselves because we are American. After 100 years, we don't feel British.
No, they talked about themselves as English. In the Declaration they say it's appropriate to the English. Don't they talk about the English in the Declaration? Somebody look it up quick.
Yeah, I know. I'll get to read it again.
Yeah, okay. So everybody needs to read it. But okay, so one, if we've done the Albion seed many times, but it's always worth repeating, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where I got that from, this idea that, well, particularly in New England, they felt like Americans because there were so many years removed of living within the British system in Britain that they didn't feel British. They felt American. And they were reminded of that every time they went to Britain, that they were, in fact, second-class citizens there.
Well, that being the problem, right? They wanted to feel like they were, in fact, English. And as far as they were concerned, the court didn't recognize them anymore. because so, that they'd lived away long enough from the centers of the culture that so, I mean, they're saying therefore there was a cultural difference and they felt it.
There was. I mean, we'd be more accurate to say they were Englishmen in America. That was a separate animal from an Englishman, period. Right, full stop, just an Englishman.
Right. Okay, but the thing we know from Albie and Seed is that they come over in multiple groups and they hate each other, which is why they are in
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they did. They literally fought each other in England and then came and developed separate colonies in Virginia and New England. So.
Right. We have all the different states because they all hated each other. And the one thing they hated more than each other was the British, who they felt were taxing them inappropriately because, multiple layers there. That, we've also talked about how, what happened with Germany. So people are finally waking up to the fact that there are ways in which the history of the 20th century has been caricatured for.
Yes. And, I somehow remember this being spoken about much more easily 40 years ago when I was in high school.
Oh, really?
I do. The fact that the pro, and it's completely driven by this, the pro-Israel lobby, it's like Israel or die, Israel forever. We never criticize Israel under any circumstances, or any of the people that got there, or can immigrate there because of their supposed bloodline, right? Mm-hmm. I don't remember it existing like that back in the 80s. People would talk freely about how badly Germany was treated during the First World War and how that led to the Second World War.
Yeah.
And how the what was it called? It wasn't called the Marshall Plan. It was something else. Well, maybe it was, where we basically airlifted food to the starving Germans after the end of the Second World War. That was talked about freely because we were trying to save them from being overrun by the Russians,
right?
Soviets, by the Soviets, and that's not talked about a lot now. Now, the only thing that seems to be talked a lot about since I don't know since when, but maybe 20, 25 years ago, maybe
20 years ago.
Were erected.
This is why we can feel like we've been in this weird time warp for the last 20 years, because suddenly things that we knew growing up just vanished.
It's like, this is news to you?
From people's conversation.
That Germany was treated abominably after the First World War, and that there was no reason to have the war to begin with. There was absolutely no reason for Wilson to get us into it. Mm-hmm. Now, a couple of years ago, I think when you and I first started talking, Princeton University changed the name of its Wilson Center for International Affairs or something like that. They renamed it after, and I don't know this lady's name. She's married to George Lucas, and she's an alumni there. And they donated money and they named the building after her. Now, I don't see nothing wrong with that. That happens all the time. You donate money, you get a building named after you. But it's the fact that her name replaced Wilson. And you and I said, it was hard to care when he's such a horrible person. And you're the first person I ever met who were like, oh, yeah, he was awful. Because most people don't know anything about it.
Right.
Because they don't read about it, or they just don't remember learning about it, But yeah, these were things that were just taken as a given. And now they're not discussed at all, ever. It's like, Germany is still rounding up 100-year-old people for having worked as a secretary for in a concentration camp when they were 19 and putting them in prison.
Right.
It's sickening. It's just absolutely sickening, because they're clearly human sacrifices, being to keep this anger narrative going. Like, you have to be angry and you have to stay. And
that they're not. So the thing is that the thing that happened almost 9/11, right? And so the degree to which we've been in that, we felt it as a spell. The spell has been lifting over the last few years, as this sort of must hate enemy kind of thing, and that one did. I think also the Germany one is confusing to me, because it has. I suppose it's the weakening of the EU, possibly. It's like you have to make sure that the World War II narrative holds, because otherwise there's no reason for the kind of community that they're allegedly working with it. But I was thinking about this. It's like, so you want to bring over all of these people from India to work in, the tech industry and such. Now, if 50 years from now we then got in a war with India, if you sort of, I was thinking this as a what if, and like a comparison with the number of Germans that came in to the United States in the mid 19th century, and by 1910, 1915, they had to hate their own country. It's like 50 years later, wouldn't it be interesting if okay, you want to come over here, and to be American, you're now going to have to hate the country you came from.
Yeah. Change your name, deny that it's Indian. Tell everybody it's something else.
Right. So welcome to America, right? Any of us with German hair. It's like I have the Scots-Irish. We also have the German. I knew about the Scots-Irish, the Presbyterian, my whole life. The German, it only started dawning on me I knew my ancestors' names and my grandparents' names and things like that. But it's like, oh, wait a minute. Exactly why were there Germans here? What happened with the diaspora in the 19th century of Germans? Oh, right. They were all fleeing from 1848, largely, right? All of the upheavals of that, which was also a consequence of, guess what? Napoleon destroying all of their governments and reconstituting and Europe thanks to Napoleon.
Was caused by the French Revolution.
Back to the philosophes.
Which was caused by the Enlightenment.
Right. Right. But the thing is, if we can tie this back together a little bit, we've got some chat going on in our chat. We got, yes, American Nations. Colin Woodard is an excellent book about this. Cyril Nil Mill. I'm not sure. I'm not following exactly what you're talking about here. Cyril Nil Mill is speaking in code. He's responding to things that I'm saying. We had Adriana Perez saying Happy New Year from Venezuela. Happy New Year. And Mel saying Doc's going to turn into Spider-Woman. Well, maybe.
Madam Web.
Madam Web. Okay, so let me see if I can pull these things together, right? We were, in fact, still talking about the Enlightenment tech bros, right? That we have been working to figure out how to tell enough of the American story that some of what we've just been talking about right now makes sense, right? It's like I was trying to play some of our episode on Marshall McLuhan for my mom, and I realized, oh my gosh, where do you start? Just how do we? I mean, even just summarize, like we got the headers showing on our screens now. If you're watching as we're talking, the images from all of the episodes, the cover images from all of the episodes we did this past year. Could you summarize what we've talked about in the Mosaic Ark as a single thing? It is a single thing. This Mosaic is a single experience that we're participating in.
Bunches of things.
But it's so many layers, right? And the sense of being American, it's politically, it's not convincing anymore, and hasn't been for some time for me, to simply point to the founding documents and say, this is the philosophy by which we're going to live. Because that argument was itself dissociated from everything that made communities. These people came over from England, left behind their ancestors, their towns, their families and stuff, got here, couldn't, go back they went back and forth a fair amount, but most, as you were saying, the people that came here and settled lost touch with what it meant to be English. I mean, the people that are coming over here from India, how long is it going to be? Well, it depends on whether the planes keep flying, right? Whether or not you can go back and forth regularly, you will lose what you were. Eventually,
they're recreating it here, and that's not a big thing. We've been doing that for 200 years, right? When these documents were
400,
written,
but yeah,
it was understood that these 13 different now new colonies, now states, each had their own separate culture. This is why General Lee turned Abraham Lincoln down when he was offered, to lead the Union Army. He said, I cannot fight against Virginia. Virginia was his home. The United States was not his home. Virginia was his home. Right. And that was widely understood until the Civil War, right? So you have large groups of immigrants coming in now, and they're recreating their homes here. One of the largest Hindu temples in the world is in New Jersey right now. And I've seen pictures of it. It looks stunning. It does, just looks beautiful. I'd love to see it in person. But they are recreating their culture here. That's nothing I have a problem with. I have a problem with people like Ramaswamy who are first generation and have the gall to criticize American culture with respect to people who are, like, as you described, basically indentured servants, and saying, why aren't you like them?
Yeah, why?
Because we worked so hard.
He's saying, yes. I mean, he's describing slavery.
He is, and we worked so hard to get respect for the American workers so that they could have actual rights as working people. For him to come in and go, you people are so inferior to our culture. Let's just change all that. Let's just pretend 150 years of labor movement in this country never happened. And I am the most anti-union person you're ever going to meet, but that's some world-class BS he's spewing here. I don't think unions should be illegal. I don't think people should be expected to never live and have families and have children and have time for themselves that doesn't involve making him money by working 80 hours a week for pennies or any amount. That's a sickening amount of work to expect anybody to do. And I get really angry when somebody would come over here and say that. No, I didn't come over here. I was born here. Yeah. Were you considering yourself American, though, or were you considering yourself a completely different class? It was neither American nor Indian, but robber baron. It's like I said to our friend Carbon Mike years ago. I said, Oprah's not black. Oprah's rich. That's a completely different class of people. And he agreed with me. He's like, yep, that's right. It's true.
Well, that she's not just because of this. The theme, our Pottersville theme is actually a good one to hold on to here.
Yeah.
That the point about George Bailey was, as you know, he had a bank and he helped people. So it's the
savings and loan, basically.
Yeah. The point being not
by the shareholders,
not the rich versus the poor, but the relationship between the two. And that what I mean, as you rightly, I'm just going to milk your fury. You're rightly mad at Ramaswamy, pretending that having community. I mean, what he specifically in that infamous tweet, lambasted various sitcoms that were about friends and family. And if you didn't spend all your time, watching this stuff about. Which ones did he list, right? And they were ones that I didn't even know about. It's like he can list those. It's like you weren't studying hard enough, guys, because I can't remember the television shows that were on when I was in college because I didn't watch them.
Yeah, you didn't have time to watch them, right? Yeah, you people are getting above your station expecting nice things in life. Your job is to work.
Yeah.
That's the tone. It's really sick.
But it's sickening. also this rupture of community at all levels that he's willing to bring in people. I mean, the problem so one, the recruiting, they bring a bunch of people from India, and then the Indians want to hire more Indians. And this has been the history of American immigration, that the Germans come over and they bring a lot more Germans, and then they make Germantown. And the Chinese come over and they bring a lot more Chinese and they make Chinatown. And the Amish come over, which we are apparently meant to be grateful for helping us elect Trump, come over and live in Western Pennsylvania. Completely separate from the rest of the culture. And, the Italians come in and they have My Cousin Vinny, right? I mean, that's what's funny about My Cousin Vinny. If you haven't seen it, you must see it. It's, the New York Italians down there in Alabama, and the Fred Gwynn, Herman Munster, judge.
He was wonderful. Flirting with her. It was so cute.
With his, oh, he's very cute. With his degree from Yale as the judge, right? And it's like, so, but we have law down here, which I thought, it's like talking about. We're going to come back to Milo eventually. The way in which America has defined itself culturally is, our dramas. Milo said quite accurately, take place through the courts, right? That is the one thing we have as a formal ritual. And so it is, it's very interesting how many of our great movies are courtroom dramas, because the sort of definition of the United States is we live under this law. Okay, so here we got Putin talking now right now. Maybe I should change the properties on these slides aren't going fast enough. I'm going to make them go a little faster. There we go. Oh no, here I'll skip through to Putin. You guys are not going to get your year in review if I don't do this properly. Here we got Putin. I've sped them up a little bit. They should move a little faster. See how techie I am, bro.
Texas.
I have. Okay, so let's.
You're Texas.
What? Check this. That
You're a tech sis, not a tech bro.
Texas. I have. If the rumors that are out there on Social Galactic about what Elon's SAT scores were.
Oh no, I didn't hear that. What is it?
Mine were higher. All right.
No, I'm gonna, and I will say freely
in math as
I
well.
Mine to my grade.
We go. I don't. The thing is, I don't know whether they're right. What they were saying, but the reported 670, 730, 670 verbal, 730 math. Excuse me, that's embarrassing.
That's not that great.
No, seriously, in 730 math, I had higher. I am a girl. Okay. My GREs were even higher than my SATs, but and I didn't study any more for them than I did for the SATs. I must have just studied in school. Who knows, right?
Yeah, you just got used to studying.
The law, right? I was thinking about the law, and I was thinking about what makes us Americans. I mean, it's okay. So this is another thought that I hadn't played off of. But if what they want to do is swindle the law, they are not being American at all, because that's the one thing we have as a culture to bind us together. And the way that the H-1Bs have been abused, going against their purpose, their legal purpose, that's the most un-American thing there is.
Yeah, it was for a limited time, specific project. Not I'm just going to keep bringing them in because they work cheap, and it's really being abused.
Yeah,
you can see these. They're advertising to bring their own people in, and by their own people, sometimes usually it means their own family members and extended family members, and it's just it's chain migration that starts with an H-1B.
Right.
I'm going to advertise for somebody who speaks a very specific dialect of native Mexican Spanish, who graduated at this level, and you'll just put very specific requirements in that only one person can meet,
right.
and then you post that in a public space, which is in the front door of your office, nobody ever comes into, and you don't publish it. They're very vague.
Right.
They're almost written to be abused, to bring in specific people. Right. I want somebody who only speaks Chinese, who only speaks this dialect of Chinese, who graduated with this specific, degree from this specific university, because they're looking for a specific person.
Right.
And that's the way these things get advertised. And, public means somebody can walk through your door and see it, but they have to know it's there. You don't have to tell them, wink, wink. It's not what it was, the way it was sold to the public.
Right.
Like I said, the way my husband came in with thousands of other engineers, and I think he worked for a contracting company. Over 50% of the people in that company were American. So they were hiring engineers from everywhere because they needed a bunch of them for this project. Right. And
that's the sort of vision of it, 90s. Right? It's like if you want to accomplish something particular, the expertise is going to be, thin and distributed. So you're going to need to bring them in from wherever they are. But all of this, I mean, this is still all our slides have sped up now. We're at Macris, the autark, it's still this enlightenment progressive vision of what human life is for, which is progress, right? We're going to be to this technological progress. It's not about building families or homes. It's not about building, the town. It's about being as efficient as possible in order to, and then fill in the blank. It's like, if you go on, Grok is fun to play with on X now, because it's I did a series posted on my Telegram of Grok's versions of the nativity. Tell the nativity story, in these different styles, which it couldn't do. I mean, it's sort of, they would have a few vocabulary words thrown in every so often and kind of do it. But
the funniest one was they took what was the name of Hans's book? They did
The Hidden Truth. Yeah.
Hidden Truth. That was perfect. I made it sound like this really like mysterious, not like science fiction, almost like a
code. It was like a code. Anyway, so you could ask, ask Grok, what is the meaning of life, right? Or something like that. That it's not clear to me that Ramaswamy and Musk think life has meaning. What would it be? Right? It's
past the end of this one, you mean?
Well, no, just like life, whether life has meaning, right? It's like we're supposed to want to do what, right? And it's a very, now I'm itchy. My spider bite, and it was like my incarnate. It was supposed to be on Christmas Day when we're celebrating the incarnation. Musk put up a thing because he got sick of everybody, teasing him about how silly he was being about the H-1B. So he said, post something beautiful and uplifting. And I'm like, the word became flesh and dwelt among us.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I saw that. That's good.
On the day of the incarnation, we're suddenly having to argue about how we're going to excel at tech. With what?
I think Musk believes in literal physical human expansion, and which means having lots and lots of babies. So he does believe in life, but he believes in a different way than you and I do, like expanding it into different planets, almost like.
But why? Why? What's the whole point? What's the point?
Why did anybody in Europe want to explore and see what was on the other side of the ocean?
Oh, well, okay. We're almost getting to what Milo said.
Yeah, we need to find a route to India, but other people were like, I just want to see what's there. I'm sure a lot of them were. They just had this kind of obsessive. Well, the Vikings and the Greeks both did this. They expanded out and had settlements because they wanted space. And I think Musk is kind of like in that vein, like literal physical space needs to expand so more people can be there. But that's where he stops, right? It's like, so more people and what? And then you just keep doing it. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? Just for its own sake. I mean, the Greeks actually needed land. So did the Vikings. They needed land to expand.
Okay, we're hopping. We're really hopping around too much. This is what happens when you just let us riff.
We never do
riff. That. No, sometimes we actually have a plan, and it's
what?
What?
Did we come up with a plan tonight?
No, we didn't. We're just seeing. Yeah. We're seeing where the weave takes us because.
And you see what happens when you don't.
You see what happens when we don't. Okay, so this is me arguing with Milo. Let me see. Show more. Okay, no, wait. Okay, so Milo had said earlier today, I'm looking on X, and that this is actually topical, guys. You just have to wait for me to find all of this. Oh, look, he's kept. Okay, well, at one point he said Elon is wrong about a lot of things. Elon wears pentagrams. Elon needs a spiritual director and remedial humanities classes, but he seems like a real person, which is huge. Okay, fine.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Well, the thing is, I have liked him when he's sort of autistically cute and enthusiastic and stuff like that. Which it's like Ramaswamy is. Well, I have met him in person to shake his hand, and I have the speech that he gave to us when we had our little conference on COVID, academia's COVID mismanagement. Was his stump speech, I think, right? It wasn't really topical.
His what speech?
It wasn't really topical to our conversation because he showed up, gave a speech, and left. No, so I don't know, right? We're not. This is
like Musk. It's hard not to like Musk because he loves his children, and
right.
Anybody who loves children, their own children, and others can relate to that. That's very human.
Okay,
right. It's hard. It's hard to relate to somebody like Ramaswamy who is only about financial progress, and you don't see anything else. He looks like a social climber and talks like a robber baron.
Ramaswamy.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the Milo said this earlier today, 12 hours ago. He was saying one of the things Britain did in India, really quite recently in historical terms, was forcibly in sati, the practice of chucking Hindu widows on their husbands' funeral pyres, normally in defiance of the widow's blood-curdlingly screamed objections. Maybe that was a misstep. Okay, Milo is always going to be like provocative when he says it. And someone responded to him, stopping cruel savagery is a Christian virtue, to which Milo says, for hundreds of years, it was Britain's national pastime. And then he says, I'd like to be remembered as someone who quietly kept the spirit of the East India Trading Company alive. Bringing civilization and, when needed, the king's justice to the darkest, most hopeless, most despairing corners of the earth. For instance, Detroit. And then he says, in India, we created a powerful geopolitical ally in our own image and then inexplicably abandoned the country, which had no choice but to seek friends in China and Russia. Okay, when he said, claiming that we need the spirit of the East India Trading Company got me saying we need to talk, which he then ignored. And I said, no, I'm not kidding. We do need to talk because, of course, if you've been following our journeys on the Mosaic Ark, you will recognize that the East India Company were pirates. Oh, wait, no, I said, okay. The whole point of the maritime expansion of European influence in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, notice the full, and on our drive, we were listening more to more of Neil Stephenson's Baroque cycle. So this is in my head, right? It's like the Stevenson in that series has the characters, they made it, one of them, Jack, one of the main characters, not Jack Sparrow, Jack Shafto, has been as a galley slave going around the Mediterranean for a bit, and they've just gone through Cairo adventures, and they're off to their way to India, right? In the 17th century. That the Europe's expansion in this maritime period is around the whole world, right? So I was thinking about that. But the whole point of this expansion was to gain access to the riches, right? Not the nothingness, the riches of China and India, about which Europeans had read in the travel accounts of Marco Polo and other medieval merchants and pilgrims. Yes, I can list them, but okay. What followed was piracy at all levels. It just depended on whether you were a pirate for the crown or for the brotherhood, as in the pirate brotherhood, right? Which is what Defoe wrote about in describing the Caribbean pirates in the early 17th, late 17th, early 18th century. To which Milo responded, if you are in the service of His or Her Majesty, by definition, you are not a pirate. To which I said, raise your hand if you have direct ancestors who were knighted by Queen Elizabeth I for their service to her as pirates.
Right. It's not by definition, it's by change in word.
Yeah, whether they're privateers, so under license, or stealing from the Spanish, for which you get knighted and raised to the admiralty so you can fight the Spanish in the Armada.
Right, using their own money.
Having been knighted by the Spanish, right? Sir Juan, right? Sir John Hawkins, great-great-great-great-granddaddy, right? So I love that so much. It's like you cannot it's like, seriously, own your ancestry, which includes, and then I found, very usefully on the internet provided a video about, in fact, what the British did in India that has left them, I don't know. It's interesting how their population has expanded since their independence, but that they have no industry now is directly the problem of, guess what? The British who destroyed it for the sake of the Industrial Revolution. Yeah. Excuse me, you don't get to hate on the South now and say we were the bad ones. Excuse me. I mean, nobody gets out of this story.
Well, nobody gets out of it clean.
No.
Do they?
No. Which is, of course, the game that has been being played against us for the last 20, 30 years with critical race theory. It's like you can't, object to anything that we're doing in order to bring, indentured servants over in vast numbers and, underpay them and transform your culture and your economy because otherwise you're racist. And it's like,
This is the new everybody who doesn't agree with me is Hitler. Is literally Hitler. It's like everybody who doesn't agree with me is literally a racist.
Well, it is.
Which is a very racist thing to say.
It's interesting how that exploded again last week. It's like, and it didn't work. It's like, no.
No, because you're 10 years too late. Sorry, yeah. Try again.
But you're bringing people over from India, taking them away from their. It's like, India, why don't you go and if all of these great people are there in India, go there and set up, functioning economies in India so that India can flourish.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have any of those pesky regulations to get through or politicians to buy, or you probably do have to buy them. But
I think it's British after all. They learned how to they learned how to govern from the British. Milo said so in his tweet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all those pesky environmental regulations gone, it just sounds like a dream. Do it. I like watching the launches. I can actually see them from where I live. They're pretty cool to watch.
Sure.
But if it means Americans get treated with respect by potential employers again, bye. I don't care. I don't want to ever see another cool thing here again. I don't care about it. I care about my people. I care about my neighbors. And I care about them being able to have decent work and a decent life at the same time and being treated like human beings and not slaves.
It is interesting that neither Ramaswamy nor Musk seem to care about the people in India.
Yeah, funny that, isn't it?
So we have Mark Lefebvre telling us, East India Company, world's largest corporation, huge monopoly, took over England, established parliament, squeezed the colonies, worst corporate takeover of government ever. Yeah. I mean, this is the irony of the American Revolution is that partly the British didn't want us anymore because they were occupied with India.
They were too occupied. They were occupied with the French too.
Yeah, but they were actually they made a concerted decision not to worry about defending the colony, keeping the control of the colonies in the Americas because they were, by that point, big into India.
Yeah, the only way America hurt them was their pride. Like, how dare you rebel against the crown? That was the attitude. But yeah, all of their riches were in India and China.
Oh, completely. And it's, I think the English weren't yet in China at that point. They were definitely, now, if I anticipated we were going to play this game, I would have looked it up. But there was an article I saw a few years ago saying, the last battle of the American Revolution was in fact a maritime battle fought off India, right? And maybe an American ship and the British ship, but that we've been tied in interesting ways to the British adventure in India our entire history. This isn't like a new problem for us.
And also Paul Revere's, his name was Paul Revere's daughter. I'm trying to remember because I took a tour of his house once when I lived in Boston. She was married to our first ambassador to China. So
that's the United States. So that's
the United States, the young United States. So we had a relationship with China for a very long time while the British were trying to take it over.
Right. My English husband was echoing something in the background there. If you want to be part of the conversation, you have to come on camera. So he's making tea. What? I don't know what he's making. He's making me drinks for in fact, this is New Year's Eve still.
Yes.
Okay, so where are we by this point? So this for me was the interesting. It's like, how do you make this argument so that you show who is actually being taken? Oh, I hear champagne corks popping. Maybe I think he's decided that it's close enough. It's 9:18. Why are you opening the champagne now? At the rate we drink it, we better start now. Or maybe it's like we'll go. I'm distracted by the prospect of champagne.
Ooh. Have you got the real stuff? We got the Spanish sparkling wine. We got cava.
Cheers. Okay, so here we go. This is here's to the dying year, and and
Okay.
and
Here,
and the,
cheers. My
okay,
Coca-Cola.
yes. Oh, cheers. Okay, see, look, there is another person around. See, proof that my husband exists. His hand. It's the hand of the drinks master. Okay, let's try to hold this together. Um,
India's falling apart.
well,
Well, there was no India. I mean, they cobbled together a huge landmass that after 1948 was separated into India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh.
yeah,
Right?
that's
Or
another
Bangladesh
layer
came a
of
little bit
it.
later.
Yeah. And that there were
Right, because there were all
separate
these separate
kingdoms.
kingdoms.
Yes, beforehand. But there was also the Mughal. I don't know detail India history well enough. I know Lagan, right, which is about how the land tax was starving them, and they play a cricket game against the evil brother of the beautiful woman. No,
Oh,
it's
you showed that movie, yeah.
Lagan's great. It's a
That
great
was
movie.
great.
Great songs. Um,
Yeah.
that the lesson in all of this, guys, if you've been watching the fallout of the Pottersville plus the H-1B debate, is they've used racism as a way of making us dividing the working class, obviously, so that we can't actually make arguments against the way in which the progress is destroying human community.
Yeah.
I mean, I use the indentured servants purposely because, of course, that's the way a lot of the Irish came over. And the white slaves, the white,
too.
the white slaves brought over the working class, and then white and black slaves are used against each other in the South, and then now, I mean, it's like we're reinventing the same ways in which the working class was constantly divided. So we can Vivek, growing up in Ohio, can sneer about the local jocks and prom queens and stuff like that. Yeah, and we've talked about this a lot before. I mean, you'll sneer at the people that live along the route that I drive down to get to my mom's. Route 66 goes straight through all the middle of these former small towns and farming communities, and it's Illinois, Missouri, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where all the work is done. Where all the energy is produced, or used to be.
Yeah.
And all the cattle raised, all the food produced. It's right down the middle of the country.
Oh, but we're not supposed to need food. We're all going to be transcended into robots that only need maintenance, not food. I mean, what I find it so funny, it's like we're gonna suddenly live as machines and therefore not die. And it's like, if you see, hey, you know how much maintenance everything takes.
They already view you as machines. That's what's really
very what
bothersome. They already view us as machines. A lot of these people just view us as machines.
They view human machines. Yes, the 17th century.
It's time for the herd to be vaccinated. It's time for the herd to change their feed, right?
Yeah.
It's time for the herd to change their programming. This is the way we're viewed, and they can't hide. This was the year of the mask off, 2024, right down to the last week.
So what do we get? So now we have Tolkien and his dreaming on screen. I mean, that's it. I mean, Tolkien did. He was worried about this in the early 20th century, and
I could see that.
The Shire as an image is, of course, the Shire as a local place with. Okay, so imperfect people, because the hobbits are squabbly and gossipy and all of those sorts of things. And Tolkien understood that, right? He didn't expect people to all be, courtly, and courtly is another word. So he didn't expect them all to be, paragons of virtue. He understood them. That's why they're hobbits. But they should have their own community, which is why Aragorn is the great king, because he leaves them alone. He's like the opposite of the cosmopolitan federalism that we're constantly being brought into.
Cosmopolitan federalism. What would that be? Could you define that?
Well, so the cosmopolitanism is in fact all of the great cities are all more connected than the land that they rule over, because like the pirates or the maritime empire, they're all ports, they're all connected by the upper class, which we're constantly complaining that, okay, I spend my life driving up and down the country, but the thing that distinguishes the nobility is mobility. They can move. This particular nobility that we have can move from location to location. So, if Trump gets elected, I'm moving to Canada. If Trump gets elected, I'm moving to New Zealand. Right? They're not grounded anywhere.
They're citizens of the world.
Right.
Right.
And which is different from a nobility that takes its people as people to be protected. Right. That's the British. I mean, it's funny that the British ideal is actually of the lord who cares for his peasants. Mm-hmm. But like Robert E. Lee,
they're expected to fight for them.
Not one of my direct ancestors, but my middle name is Lee because we were from Virginia too. Yeah. After we were Hawkins, we were Lees.
Oh.
No, we were Fultons, but we were named after Lees. Right. Anyway.
You have an impressive background.
Well, mainly what I have is my grandfather Fulton, who did all the genealogy, right? Most of us are probably related. What I enjoyed about reading through what my grandfather Fulton found out about our family, he didn't do my grandmother's family, which are Haberers, and therefore I would have known more about the Germans, but he did his. It's basically the story of the United States. I mean, the colonies in the United States. It's the people coming over from England and Scotland and Amsterdam. We were in New Amsterdam, intermarrying here, moving west, settling in the Midwest, intermarrying with the Germans that showed up. Right? It's like we're a totally ordinary family for the gentry educated class of the middle of the country, and that means we're tied into all of these other parts of the story. It doesn't leave us being lords. It leaves us being there is a blog post on this. White privilege means you're responsible for your town.
Oh, I missed that one. Huh.
Oh, I should actually read that one out loud because that's really topical to what we're talking about right now. Here we go. Well, it's like white privilege. This is the version of my version of It's a Wonderful Life, right? Okay, white privilege. And I wrote this one in 2016. All of this, I told you so. Constantly, I told you so.
This is another one of those moments.
I don't know whether I'll read the whole thing, but I'll. Okay, something like this. But anyway, it's Finzi Barrett Prayers, white privilege. Of course, I have it. I've always known I have it. I grew up in the South, after all, where you hear about it every day. You kids are so lucky. The grown-ups would say to my siblings and me. They said it when we lived in Albuquerque, where my sister and brother were born, the only blue-eyed babies in the hospital nursery, because we were there in the 60s, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They said it when we moved to Louisville, and the other girls in the neighborhood wanted to beat me up because I was the new girl. Give me a break, Vivek. Come on. Somewhat pudgy. They called me full ton. I mean, they stuffed notes under the door.
Kids are mean.
They are. So I was somewhat pudgy and reading all the time. The day of the fight, I was reading at a tree. There was a fight. I had to beat up the bully so that They said it when my father left my mother for another much younger woman, leaving my mother to raise the three of us on her own. When my father left, I was 11, my sister 9, my brother 7. We saw him once a year or so after that. Yes, you read that right. Usually at Thanksgiving. I saw my father once a year when I was growing up. So single parent family, excuse me, been there, done that. I got higher SAT scores than you did. They said it when my mother moved us to Amarillo to be near her parents, and her mother died the year after next, leaving my mother to take care of her father until he died almost 20 years later. They said it day after day after day, whenever we cried or had a bad day at school or failed to make friends or felt like we didn't fit in. My brother tells me he had to fight pretty much every day he was in school. You kids are so lucky, right? And so I'm talking about how this one I think I wrote this one crying, right? But the thing is, as my father would insist deep in his cups, yes, he drank after my stepmother left him for a man her own age. My father was an alcoholic. Guess what? The grown-ups were right. We were. Your mother has done so much for you, they would say, as if daring us to disagree. Conversations in the South are often somewhat confrontational. We had a home, food, clothes, toys, free time in which to get into fights, pets, a yard to play in, good schools to attend. Public schools at that point. Somehow Mom also managed, between shifts at the hospital, to find time to drive us to things like gymnastic and church. Although since there was a swimming pool in our subdivision, we were able to walk, barefoot, of course, because it was summer. Because it was more romantic, to the pool during the summer. But above all, and this is what made us truly lucky, we had status. Because, of course, we weren't just any kids. We were the Fultons. Practically nobility, in fact, or so the grown-ups would have us believe. You kids are so lucky. And indeed, I mean, okay, I have to go through my grandparents and say, we had status. My grandfather, the 2-star general, right? He was Army, but then career Air Force. So he's like ground up. Talk about Pete. I showed Pete Hegseth a picture of my grandfather once when I'm talking to Pete Hegseth, whom I've met, because you kids are so lucky. And he was like, oh, 2 stars. And I'm like, 2 stars, my grandfather, right? But my grandmother, my grandmother was a school teacher. My my mom's father was a doctor, and my mom's mother started the daycare in the town, responsible for the town. And I said, we were lucky. I know what you're thinking. Wow, they must have been full of themselves. Well, did I say this was the South? Maybe the North, white privilege feels like that. I wouldn't know. But in the South, you kids are so lucky. It doesn't mean what you think it means if all you think it means is you're the top of the heap. You're the top of the heap. All 3 of us Fultons graduated first in our class. But in the South, with great luck, to coin a phrase, comes great responsibility. Yes, 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 yes. But this means you are responsible. You kids are so lucky. You kids are so lucky. If you did not grow up in the South, you have no idea how lucky we were. I wonder what my grandparents, with all their white privilege, would think of this letter. This something. Oh, something about white privilege. To my mind, it spits on my grandparents' service, spits on everything they did with their lives, spits on all of the concerns I've heard, the many millions who voted for President-elect Trump trying to voice over this past year. We will redouble our efforts to make sure women are in visible leadership roles. Oh, yes. Okay. So this was... my priest had sent out a letter inviting my fellow parishioners to a vigil over President-elect Trump, right? This is 2016, so we're repeating this now, right?
This was praying for success?
No, it's like, it is important for our now more than ever, it is important for our parish to seek to mirror the radical hospitality practiced by Jesus. You know, we aren't doing this. We can do all of that with the strength and humility, really listening to the legitimate concerns of the many millions who voted for President-elect Trump. As it says elsewhere in Isaiah, be not dismayed. Because back in 2016 at the Episcopalian church I was going to, they were all like horrified that Trump had gotten elected.
Oh, the Catholic church I went to as well. And it was laughable, the way the priest was acting during the homily, like we had just been taken over by hostile aliens that wanted to kill half of us. That was the vibe. Yeah. It was ridiculous.
It's exactly that, right? And so, those of us who voted for Trump, and I'm like, okay, so, we will redouble our efforts to make sure women are in visible leadership roles. Tell that to my grandmother, the classic scholar who spent her life teaching children to read and write elegant English in Alton, Illinois. Look it up on the map. It's just across from Ferguson. Remember back.
Yes,
right?
I do.
Tell that to my grandmother, the daycare founder who spent the last decade of her life creating an institution where the children of her small ranch town might thrive. The one that got surrounded by fire back in February, that my grandmother's town, right? We will, quote from the letter, we will continue to investigate how we've been malformed by the insidious white supremacy that pervades our society. Oh, yeah? Tell that to my father, who spent the last decade of his life as a trauma surgeon back in Louisville, working at the Veterans Administration Hospital, taking care of the servicemen. I wanted to say and women, but of course most of them were men, and many of them were black, who gave their health and their youth in service to our country, while also taking shifts at the General Hospital downtown to sew up the young men who had been knifed or shot in local disputes.
Mm.
Tell that to my mother, who spent the last decade of her life, this was almost 10 years ago now, taking up the kind of service that her mother did, serving on the board of the local children's home, tutoring the inner city kids in Amarillo, and working for her church, doing charity work doing such charity work as taking meals to the homebound and creating ties with the black churches in her own community. Tell that to every member of my privileged white family who spent his or her life standing up to the bigotry of the North against the people of our region, even as we suffered the taunts and the bullying of our schoolmates for being the smart ones.
Mm-hmm.
You kids are so lucky. If you did not grow up in the South, you have no idea how lucky we were. Vivek. Seriously.
Yeah.
You kids are so lucky, then you have to do this. You have to take the lumps. You have to do the teaching. You have to go teach like my brother does at the community college now for the sake of the community.
Yeah, this is the noblesse oblige that used to be applied to the nobility, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you're given privileges, privilege means you work your butt off for your community.
Right.
You're in a position to be able to do that. And I have seen over the past decades, certain people say, well, that just proves that you've got privilege, because if you were a black person, you wouldn't have time for that. You'd just have to be working. It's like, wait a minute, if you were a black person, you have to be working, so you wouldn't have time to work. Make any sense?
Well, and it doesn't make any sense of the priest who wrote that letter. I'd been in regular fights with before I left that church and I converted. Right, I was like, never mind.
Yeah.
I see that kind of responsibility in the black, men and women of my neighborhood, because they do take responsibility for their. This is why it's like the one thing.
A double lie.
It's a double lie, and the thing that made me in our slides they're moving faster, so they're cycling now. We're back at Putin. The thing that made me most angry about Kamala Harris in November was she didn't show up, right? And you can get me so mad at this point, right? It's like she promised
the same thing Hillary did.
She promised those students who showed up on the election night to be there at Howard to give a speech to them, and she didn't even show up.
Hillary did that.
Both of them, right? How dare they? How they have a responsibility to all those kids are going to remember is they weren't there, right?
Yeah, you want to see the definition of a weak woman? It's those two.
They didn't show up to talk to their own supporters.
Yeah. Send a man out to handle it. Both of them did.
Yeah.
Hillary sent Podesta out to say, I think it was Podesta. She won't be out. She'll be back tomorrow.
No, your responsibility. Put your makeup on, do your hair, get your heels on. My grandmother who founded the daycare center, it's like she all wore heels in a town of 3,000 people, right? She was the wife of the town doctor, and she dressed it, right? You put it here. We've got the Dune Mother Superior, right? You put your clothes on and you go out there and you do your job, your real job, which is keeping Pottersville from happening, because you're keeping it from turning into this place with no soul. Yeah.
No soul. Yeah. Everybody's just profligately spending money on booze and liquor and hookers, and that's it. That's your town now. All the essential things we found it were essential.
Well, but a town is it has these people that do the leading, right? The responsibility, the teaching, the caring, the preaching, and the whatever they're doing and bringing the people over from India with these H1B, they're bringing them, they're taking them as this is not me saying it, right? The economic units, right? It's like, oh, well, you can work. We'll put you here. It's like no different from putting them on slave ships and doing, deciding that they can be
It's
simply bodies who work.
it's for 25, 30 years. It's been the trend in corporate America and in government to refer to people, to employees, as human capital.
Mm-hmm.
It's dehumanizing. They don't see you as human. They see you as a cog in their machine. We need a cog. Cogs from India are cheaper than cogs from Indiana. So we're going to use the Indian cogs.
Yep.
Free trade.
Free trade. This is
too.
the free, yes. And, of all the things I'm thankful to Vox for teaching me is that the problem with free trade is it ends up with free labor, right? And movement of people, mm-hmm. which means no towns, no states, no mm-hmm. nations, nothing that makes human community possible, because you're moving everybody mm-hmm. around away from their families, away from their networks, away from, because they have a commercial, an economic value.
It's atomized society. Every individual is alone. They're without any extended family. They're without any generational knowledge of the neighborhood they're living mm-hmm. in, which means there's no continuity of culture either. And culture can't grow organically. It can only be transplanted from one place to another. But even that eventually gets dissipated and replaced by something else, because you can't let people get too comfortable with each other and their communities. They might fight for their communities then.
Right.
They might like it and want to stay. They might get above their station. Hey, Ramaswamy?
Well, I mean, but it's interesting. The above there, it's like you just want to, this is the tragedy that I feel in my regular journeys across the middle of our country. One, the freeways are these rivers that cut through the middle of it. Mm-hmm. And if you get mm-hmm. off the freeway, you see more of what's left of the towns. Yeah. But the truly the tragedy of America, and it's interesting in the video that I found of what the British did in India, destroying their industry so that they destroyed their textile industry, forced them to buy textiles from England, turn them all into peasants, and then tax them. This is what Lagan is about, right? Then they tax them so heavily that they can't pay it.
Yeah.
The railroads are part of this sort of thing. The United States the expansion in the 19th century is driven on the rails for sure, because you can mm-hmm. move. Yeah. But now that we are the saddest thing about it is we're this country of moving machines around. Yeah. And driving in Chicago from the south, you go past the Amazon warehouse and the LeGroux logistics site and what else did I notice? Right there, these big flat buildings that have ports for the trucks to go into. Right, everything is the machines. And mm-hmm. what people liked about Europe, it's odd to realize all my ancestors left Europe to come here. People love Europe because it's all like pedestrian size. All the old towns are human. And what we have now here is, we already live on like Mars in the sense of we don't have human. What was I doing? I drive 1,000 miles, right, in 2 days. That's like,
that's a lot in 2 days.
Well, my husband helps, but we share, right? It's this continual rupture of self by way of being part of the machines. And Musk he loves the machines, and he wants people to be in the machines, and he wants people to go live in Mars in machines.
Yeah, I don't really get the whole Mars obsession. I mean, I can understand having an interest in it, but he seems to have obsessive focused interest in that in particular. And I think that's where a lot of his anger comes from, because he needs cheap labor to do it, right?
Well, he thinks he needs cheap labor to do it.
Yeah, he thinks he needs cheap labor. What he needs is consistent and competent labor. And consistent, competent labor is happy labor, and the happy labor is labor people who have time off and have lives too. And they'll probably give you what you want, right? But the Mars thing, it's
Well, so the
I
hardest thing I
don't
have
get it. He
about the
talks
Mars
about
thing is like, why do you want to leave Earth? Right? It's like the way.
because he thinks you need space. He thinks I honestly think he's afraid the human race is going to die out. He's not a Christian, and so he doesn't have the spiritual view that you and I would have about this. That it doesn't happen until God says, okay, it's time to happen, right? So we don't need to expand to Mars. I don't think he sees it that way. He sees it as we need to expand out because we could die otherwise. As a species will die out. And so he has this obsessive need to save that physical species, not to save the soul, but to actually save the
Why?
species of human beings.
Why does he want to
Good
save the
question. So
species?
what
Because he
exactly?
wants to
Why do
talk
you
to
want to save the
Grok,
species?
right? We have our
Yeah.
Grok on
He
the
wants to upload his
X.
consciousness into AI. I don't
To
know.
what end? Right now we have a manuscript
Yeah.
of genealogy and the king and I forget what that one's about. I don't even remember why that was one of our.
Which one was
I
this?
don't remember. We've talked about so many things.
Genealogy and the king. Well, you did the king's coronation. That was you and Kiltz did that.
Yeah, no,
Though.
the pictures I
That
have now are
was
just from
2
this
years
year,
ago.
or just this year. Anyway, we don't
Okay.
remember.
Yeah.
We have to. Oh, here we have the
Mm.
guys carrying the flags, right? And that being that there is people can form communities out of lots of different stories. And certainly since the expansion in the 16th century into the New World, and we've people have been everybody who came here from Europe left behind their entire world. It's
Yes.
astonishing to realize what people left. I mean, I play with my Anchorstein blocks. I got some more blocks for Christmas, right? And all of the towns of Europe, all of the built structure, just like, I'm getting on a ship and I'm leaving. Wow, right? It's
Yeah.
nearly as strange as going to Mars. You would just leave behind
Yeah.
absolutely everything to come to a place that admittedly has beautiful landscape, but not much human infrastructure.
No, hostile natives, and you were likely to die of starvation or disease or cold within a year.
Well, certainly
Right?
early
Half the
on,
first English
right?
settlers
Yeah,
did.
the
Yeah,
Mayflower, like a third of them.
they were not. Yeah, they were not looking for a passage to India. They were just looking to create a God-centered community that they could control, that was outside of the control of their government. That was what they were trying to do. So people did have different reasons for going, but yeah,
You're describing the Puritans, yeah.
The Puritans, right? So they picked up their own community from here and they put it here. So that was a little bit different than the individual says, I really hate it here. We're always at war. I can never get work. I'm going to go to America and make my fortune. Right?
Some guys did. So it's interesting to me to
I think
realize a lot of,
people did that.
I have female ancestors who came over too.
On their own?
No, I mean, they must have. So the thing is, they come in small family groups usually.
Yeah, they
in
can,
the 19th century.
Though, yeah, a lot of people did come alone. I think.
Yeah.
Trying to remember, one of my ancestors came by himself. I can't remember. Sorry, but yeah, I mean, I've had some family members, like great grandparents, who came over as a family unit. Husband and wife and their dad, right? Their elderly father would come over. They'd pull their money and they'd come over. I have the whole wing of my family, my cousins. They an entire family group of people from Finland came over. Like brothers, sisters, their wives, their kids, and their parents. And they bought an apartment building, and they all moved into the apartment building together. That was in the early, 20th century. So that did happen. I think particularly in like places like Scotland and Ireland, where it was very, very difficult to eke out a living, and unless you were landed, lots of people, not just because of famine, lots of people left because it just really was awful there. But it was devastating for the people who were left behind, because the community split up, families split up, and it was permanent. There was no telephones.
Right.
If you got a letter for the rest of your life, that was pretty good. In the early days. So yeah, it was like going to Mars. So when you say, why would people want to do that? Well, people did it before. Like you said, it was like going to Mars. So why are these people saying, I want to go start a colony on Mars? If you pay attention to what Musk is writing about when he talks about this, and he's talking like a Puritan. We want to pick up and start a brand new community here, and the Martians will be running their own community,
Right.
they'll be running their own affairs, and they'll be doing it differently. They'll be setting up this type of government. It'll be a direct government too, a direct form of democracy. And he had some very specific ideas about it. But yeah, he's talking like a Puritan. We want to move here and start our ideal society right here, because there's nobody there. That wasn't true for the Puritans. There was people there, but they actually were helpful to one another for the first 100 years.
Well, when you just said that there's nobody there, and so it's going to be all like perfectly functional. But you don't have to deal with this is the constant. Now we've got Hellmouth eating the dragon and the monsters and stuff.
Yeah.
The perpetual temptation is, okay, this time we're going to make it clean and perfect.
This time we'll do it right.
Yeah. Well,
this time we'll get eaten back.
Yeah, but this time we won't have any of those messy, I mean, certainly messy human emotions, messy human,
is he in for a surprise if he ever gets there?
We won't have bullies, and everybody will have the same, work ethic, and we'll have
nobody will get above their station.
And oh, look, it's time to start feeling really good about yourself. Really good. No vice.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
This. I mean, the Enlightenment dream. We've found a tie, right, to my spider bite. Which actually now I'm drunk enough that it's still there. See, look, I still have my, like. How do I do it? There, my spider bite. Which matches my peak, right?
Really bad.
Well, it's because I keep scratching it because it itches so much. You can imagine how much worse it was on my face. Ick.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
And now, what was I talking about? See, if I had been drinking my New Year's Eve champagne, I would know what I was saying.
You're saying this time next year on Mars.
This time next year on Mars. Well, I mean that has been so perpetually the temptation that people have been drawn into. This that we can.
Yeah.
The Enlightenment temptation was to believe that we could perfect human society by reason.
And there's so many.
And here we have Satan calling
his country.
We have Satan calling his troops from our Pride series this summer.
Oh yeah, that was good. I liked that series. That was a good one. But we've had so many religious movements in this country that sought to do that, and it's funny that Musk is. I'm not a religion. I like Christian ethics. I went to Sunday school in a synagogue, so I'm multicultural religious. This seemed to be what he was trying to say. But he has a very religious way of thinking. He thinks a lot like the idealistic communes that were popping up in New York State in the 19th century. This time we're going to do it right.
Oh, I'm clearly I've had enough to drink, so I'm just feeling affectionate. He's so cute and misguided.
He is misguided. Yeah, he is. But I'm like I said,
but
earlier,
dangerous, right? It's like these cute misguided guys can be very dangerous.
It's hard to dislike somebody who likes children as much as he does.
This is true. Yes, he was very cute in all of the around in November with all the stuff from Mar-a-Lago with him and his son, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, he's a cutie. His son, not him.
I don't know. Okay, so we have exactly why leave Earth, Danielle is saying. A paper reader 101. Make himself famous for generations, plus make insane bank in the process. So this is, so indeed, we did not study up on Musk to do a proper. I've been reading a lot about Musk in the last few days, and it's like if he's motivated entirely by money, possibly. But it seems maybe not. I mean, it's.
I don't think he is.
I think maybe Vivek is, but
I think it's idiot. I think Vivek is all money. He's a robber baron. Look it up, people.
You're really stuck on that. I'm not budging.
I'm really not going to give that up. He really is. It's all about money and what he could squeeze out of people. That's the way he's been talking. No, Musk he's ideological. I don't want to say he's an ideologue because that sounds a bit like a pejorative. That's not my intention.
He has a vision.
He's a visionary.
Vision, yeah, but it's misguided.
It doesn't seem to be guided by anything other than an obsession with an idea,
We've got Lucifer on
right?
screen now. How appropriate.
Yes.
Because
Lucifer had some ideas
Musk
too.
has his Luciferian costume, right? That everybody
That was
comments on.
Baphomet, wasn't it?
Yes. Well, so the problem with the Halloween
Yeah.
costumes is like Milo dressed as the devil once too.
Yeah, I think he was just trolling people, saying, "Oh yeah, I'm the devil. Look, I'm wearing the costume." I didn't think anything of it. I think people are making a little bit too much of it.
Well, it depends on whether the devil makes much of it, but it's okay. So
Yeah.
we have like the feet on a pedestal for the Mechanical Bride. Where do we go now that we're at least 6 minutes away from end of stream, thereabouts? I'm itching. Do we just drink more and fall asleep?
I haven't started drinking yet, so it's
a whole hour ahead of time. You've only got an hour. You've only got an hour left to really get ready here for the new year.
Yeah.
Or how do we fight? What do we fight? I mean, I realized for myself, it's like if I do enough history, I'm not that I don't know whose side I'm on, right? I do. This is what's interesting. I realize because I could, end up in this situation where it's like, well, you're on the side, you're not on the side of the Americans, you're on the side of the Indians. I'm like, actually, no, I am on the side of the Americans. I'm very much on the side of the Americans. I'm sorry for the Indians that they're in the situation that they are in India. I'm sorry for the situation they end up getting in being brought here, which is, not entirely unlike the situation of many other blocks of immigrants that have come here over the centuries.
No, they're doing the same thing that the Christians did, the different groups that came over and did, right? That's not what Ramaswamy's been saying. He's just like, oh yeah, bring tons over because they work for nothing. It's just so ick.
Casey has the clarity. I'm on my, yes, I have white privilege and I'm trying to figure out how to exercise, my appropriate responsibility. It's like, exactly what am I being called to do here? And she's like, don't be a robber baron. I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, don't be that. Yeah, treat people like, the human beings that they are. And if anybody needs to know it out there, a human being is somebody you treat with kindness and respect, not like a cog in your machine. It's that simple. It's not rocket science.
Well, okay, not rocket science, but the thing is, the economy is actually is this mysterious. I mean, this is the point of Neil Stephenson Baroque cycle, is that currency is kind of alchemical and mysterious. That's why you start, the first book is Quicksilver because it's Mercury, and the second book is Confusion, which I think is because that's an alchemical term, and then the System of the World because he's got Newton in there. But the whole the sort of magic version of things is what's gold and what's silver and what's money, and how do you keep it circulating? Yeah. So there is this. I suppose if what I was hoping for is like a what's our we can't predict the future. Grok is hilarious if you ask. So I did ask it to predict the future this morning. Here I
was gonna say, give your spider venom another day to work. Maybe you can.
But that I can predict the future. Okay, so yes. possibly. But here, look. Okay, so I asked Grok 2. And okay, Grok, right? It's straight out of Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, who comes from Mars. So obviously Elon at least knows about Heinlein. But the whole point of Stranger in the Strange Land is, it's a like sex orgy. And Jill, the main character woman, learns to be a stripper, and she has the mind control to make her clothes like zap off. Trust me, I read this in high school when I was getting higher scores on the SAT than apparently Elon did. I get the Grok, all right? You want the women. Okay. So I asked it, what will be the most significant events in 2025? And it gave me a list of events. So in 2025, several noteworthy events are anticipated to take place across various domains, including technology, sports, politics, and culture. Here's a summary of some of the most significant events expected. Sports events. the FIFA World Cup and the Super Bowl, cultural music events, South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. Very good. Coachella Music Festival in Indio, California. Oh, we'll have Taylor Swift there. Okay, fine. Political events. Okay, elections around the world will be key. Good to know.
Yeah, good to know.
With significant political shifts anticipated. Well, for instance,
Grok sounds like the Oracle at Delphi at this point.
the U.S. presidential election in 2025, what? We already had it, is expected to be highly contested, potentially shaping the future of the country's political landscape. Well, gee, Grok. I'm sorry, but this
a great battle will be won.
A great I mean, Nostradamus has nothing on Grok, right? For vagueness. It's South Africa. Ooh, well, Grok cares about South Africa, right? I wonder why. It will host the G20 summit, marking it as the first African country to do so, which is expected to have a profound impact on global economic policies. Okay, technology and innovation. Expo 2025 in Osaka will focus on the theme Designing Future Society for Our Lives, highlighting technological advancements in AI, robotics, and sustainability. Okay, I'm dying of boredom now. Microsoft's Ignite conference will move to San Francisco, shot car, emphasizing AI transformation and new technological developments. Well, Grok is, okay, and then let's see, cultural celebrations. Art Basel in Miami will continue to be a significant event for modern and contemporary art, attracting a young and vibrant audience. Diwali.
This sounds like a big ad.
It's got links. It comes with links. Diwali in India, one of the most important festivals, is set to be celebrated between October 18th and 23rd with cultural festivities involving fireworks, food, and religious ceremonies. Apparently Christmas doesn't feature. Okay. Environment and social issues. Brazil will host COP30 on climate change and Nutrition for Growth Summit, UN Ocean Conference, blah, blah, blah. These events are poised to have a broad impact, influencing not only their immediate sectors, but also contributing to broader global conversations on technology, politics, culture, and environmental sustainability. And there you go, folks.
Environmental sustainability. The last two words.
And then there's 25 relevant web pages. Sorry.
You know what's really environmentally
That's really boring.
Stable?
What?
But you know what's really environmentally stable? Electric vehicles.
Oh, I did
fact,
actually also.
Do you know where you get lithium from? Most of it? Africa. Yeah. With G20.
It's still pirates,
isn't it? It's a big ad. No, so, yeah, it's a big ad for electric vehicles.
Okay, so I realized, the end of 2020 for me has become a vast I told you so, right? I'm doing nothing but reposting, blog posts from 2016 because it's like a rerun.
You are Madam Web. There you go. It's all weaving together.
Well, but what's funny about it is I right now in this moment, too much champagne already. It's a very small glass. You saw it, right? It's like just this teeny glass. I'll finish it.
I did.
It's helping my bug bite. I don't have any feeling for what's coming, which is strange because back in 2016, I mean, from 2015, when I did my 3 Cheers for White Men post, remember people, I said that.
I do.
I felt the sort of historical moment very, very powerfully. And I was thinking about, it's like, what do we talk about tonight? What do I feel is coming in the sense of me and my pattern recognition stuff, my web patterning. And not that I don't know, but I don't have doom or hope, if that makes sense.
So you're kind of, so you're kind of neutral. So you're drawing a blank.
I'm drawing a blank, which is appropriate for our writing and not for, because we're going to be the carnival with the masks and the sort of like what is, and I do think it's like the one thing that I have been, the one thing that has not changed over my life is Christ. and that sense that the more I study, the more history I study, the more our sort of mythology and soul training and all of it, everything that Jesus said becomes even more relevant. So that's hopeful. And I think I think there's something I'm reading about the temple right now, and the argument that Vox pointed out of, in fact, the Wailing Wall isn't a wall from the temple.
Right.
It's more likely a wall of the Herodian Roman camp.
Fort Antonia,
which means everybody praying at the Wailing Wall is praying to
Caesar.
Mars.
Ave Caesar.
Ave Caesar. Maybe that's why they've been praying in Jerusalem to Mars all these decades, and that's why Elon has become so powerful.
Ooh. And that's why there's so much war.
That's why there's so much war, because everybody's praying to Mars. Okay, now we're back to Mel Gibson. There's something fishy going on. Birds aren't real. Our conspiracy theories, right?
Did he say that? He didn't say that.
The birds aren't real these are the covers from our previous episodes, right? Randomly shooting at us as a model for like, how do we tell the future? And the past is future. The patterns that we've been practicing reading in our streams and in our looking for in our poetry, and we have a Mars character, everybody, in our story, who had previously been modeled on JFK because of the moonshot, but he's kind of morphing into Elon by now, because clearly Mars, right? That it's worrisome, but it feels diffuse, and I'm not quite sure where it's going to go, because it doesn't feel to me like Elon's actually that martial in his ambitions.
No, he isn't. No. Yeah, like I said, he's a visionary, and there are plenty of people in government who were more than willing to give him lots of subsidies to do things.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think they all need to be looked at. I'm a huge fan of this Doge idea. Department of Government
even with
efficiency.
Ramaswamy as part of it.
No, he should be cut out right now. He should have nothing to do with this.
Yes, the MAGA has spoken. Get rid of him.
I would never trust him again. But the idea of like cutting out a lot of unnecessary government programs is a good idea, because you had these big dinosaur agencies that spawned all these little agencies and these little bureaus and offices that don't necessarily need to be there, right? If anybody wants an example of this, look at the Department of Commerce. Just look at its history. It's famous for shoving a whole bunch of orphaned type of offices and bureaus under one umbrella that has nothing to do with commerce,
right?
Or is just only barely.
Well, because commerce is actually in the Constitution, right? It's something that the
yes, right, because interstate commerce had to be regulated because they were looked at as almost as separate countries.
We're back at pirates.
We're back to pirates.
Right. Commerce and economy. I am actually more convinced that the economy is fascinating and sort of mysterious and wonderful ways, because it is. This is Avita, when she was talking to her mom, came up with this like, we need the economy is the management of the public house, right? It's it should be George Bailey taking care of the town. Economics, rather than just ways to fleece the sheep.
Right. Yeah. Potter's looking for ways to fleece the sheep. He's looking for ways to, move them off their land and put them in factories 80 hours a week. And, George is looking for ways to help them live a decent life while earning a decent wage and being given the opportunity to do decent work, meaningful work.
And this being, of course, one of the things that Christ taught us by becoming the son of a carpenter, that work is actually ennobling.
Yeah, and I love that Mel Gibson chose the actor he did to play Christ. He said because he has to look beefy, because he's a working man. He works with his hands. He has to be strong. He has to look it. He can't look you know, he can't look like a waif of a man, in a Giorgio Armani ad from 1985 or something. This can't be Christ, because Christ works with his hands. He's a woodworker.
Right.
And yeah, that was a stroke of brilliance in its simplicity, I think. Yeah, exactly. He's the son of a carpenter, and he worked as one until he was 30.
It's great that finding Christ is actually the answer. We go back to that. Well, I did ask Rock, would 2025 be a good year for me? The horoscope writing industry is done for, right? Rachel, predicting the quality of a year for an individual involves many variables that are deeply personal and often unpredictable. Given your interest in Christian themes and community as seen in your posts, if you continue to engage with and expand your community, 2025 could indeed be enriching. Focus on nurturing your connections and pursuing activities that align with your values and interests, like the Mosaic Ark event you mentioned. It's reading my posts. These elements could contribute to making the year positive for you. However, remember that personal growth, unexpected challenges, and opportunities also play significant roles in how we perceive the goodness of a year. Keep an open mind and heart and be adaptable to changes.
Grok, the cold reader. Yes.
Well, and Putin's making his points again, right? So we leave you tonight, our loyal audience, who they've been talking. Chaos is here. We are out of pattern for a while. You'll see lots of little patterns, but the larger pattern is broken, Mark says. He also says, to exemplify what is best, mimicry is important. That'll be my live stream on Friday. Okay, watch Mark's. Mel, Finnegan's Wake mentions Barroom and Frodo. Barsoom. Okay. Beth Lamesh. I own 2 of his chairs. I kind of feel like our chat carries on its own conversation.
Sometimes. When I was in it a lot, sometimes.
We leave you with no predictions. But
we predict the unpredictable.
Thank you. Oh, look, he's bringing me some more, and I'm doomed now. I'm absolutely doomed because we need to stop and say,
I feel left out. Where's my
I don't know. Pretend you have one.
Pretend I have one.
I'll go back to just the 2 of us just a second. So thank you all for joining us tonight and celebrating the inexplicable and the piratical and the who knows what. I mean, it's like we promise to be back in the Ark in 2025, sailing the confusion and looking for patterns. And if my spider bite gives me superpowers, that'll be great. Right? We may need them.
Yes. Your superpowers of weaving the mosaic together.
Hey, at least we've got our metaphors down. I mean, we know what we're doing now. Sail with us on the Ark to find, like in our map for Dragon Common Room, our banner, right? All of the connections between the different locations. It's actually, well, I do feel happier than I did when we started. and it's because we are here together in conversation, and that's a blessing, and I'm very grateful for you and for our audience and for all of the adventures that we are definitely going to be able to share in the new year. I feel like a Muppet now. I need to like a
Muppet.
I was watching. We spent Christmas watching nothing but like retro movies. So the Brady movie, what?
Very Brady Christmas?
No, not that one. One of the Brady Bunch movies made in the 90s, but set. It's like what happens if the 70s meet the 90s? Well, it's like what happens if the 90s meets the 2000s? And then I watched the Muppets Take Manhattan last night, so I'm all like Kermit.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and we will be praying for insight and understanding in the new year, and we hope you will join us on our continuing journey into the Mosaic. I'm just gonna stop there.
And Happy
and
New
Happy
Year.
New Year. Happy New Year. Grok says it's like be hoping to change. Good night.